Hello everyone. Thank you all for watching the video and leaving meaningful comments. Wishing everyone good health and happiness.
That morning gentle sunlight spread across the yard, and lytuca let her child play outside, the clear laughter of the little one echoing through the peaceful air. She stepped into the kitchen, picked up a small knife, and began chopping vegetables to cook food for the chickens and ducks. Her cuts were steady and rhythmic, a seamless part of her daily routine. When she finished, she stood up, her hands smudged with dirt, her eyes lighting up as she watched her child scampering around the yard. She set the basket of greens down and walked to the porch, the early breeze lifting strands of her hair. The child was playing with dirt, tiny hands scooping up clumps of sand, a carefree smile warming her heart. Lytuca returned to the kitchen, grabbed the basket, and carried it to the corner of the yard where the chickens clucked hungrily. She scattered the greens, watching them peck at the pieces, a quiet calm settling over her amid life's constant demands. Meanwhile, Anan left the tea stall, walking down the road home, his heart light after the doubts had melted away. The red dirt path was uneven, flanked by lush bushes that seemed to greet him. He smiled, thinking of lytuca and their child, his steps quickening slightly. But life never lets things stay smooth for long. A motorcycle roared toward him from the opposite direction, its engine growling through the stillness. Before Anan could react, a harsh thud rang out, and he fell, clutching his leg in pain. Blood seeped from his knee, sharp stabs of agony pulsing through him, though he gritted his teeth and stayed silent. Passers-by rushed over, a few helping him up, asking quick, concerned questions. They took him to a nearby clinic, the motorcycle that hit him already gone, lost in the dust of the road. The doctor examined him, sighed in relief, and said it was just a broken leg, nothing life-threatening. They cleaned the wound, wrapped it tightly in white gauze. Anan sat there, staring at his bandaged leg, a faint unease stirring in his chest. The doctor handed him a crutch, gave a few instructions, and sent him on his way. Anan leaned on the crutch, taking slow steps along the dirt path, his eyes still fixed toward home. Each time the crutch hit the ground, he felt the pain more keenly, but it fueled his resolve to return. Lytuca, unaware of what had happened, went out to the garden with a hoe to dig the soil for planting. She carved small holes, dropping seeds into them, her hands moving with the ease of long practice. Sweat rolled down her forehead, soaking into the faded shirt worn thin at the shoulders. Rows of green sprouts from earlier plantings stood neatly, a quiet promise of better days ahead. She looked up, seeing her child still playing, a soft comfort easing her weariness. Anan, on his way back, stopped at a roadside noodle stall, the rich aroma of broth wafting toward him. He ordered a steaming bowl of bun, settling onto a rickety wooden chair. The vendor placed the bowl in front of him, the heat misting his tired eyes. He picked up the chopsticks, eating slowly, each bite sliding down his throat, soothing some of the ache. The bowl emptied, he set the chopsticks down, wiped his mouth with his sleeve, and stood with the crutch. The vendor glanced at him, tossing out a casual remark, but he just nodded with a faint smile. He stepped out of the stall, the midday sun casting his shadow long across the road. The crutch tapped a steady rhythm on the path, each step a push toward home. Lytuca, back at home, was nearly done with the last row of vegetables, bent over as sweat drenched her back. The child ran closer, waving a small stick as if showing it off to her. She looked up, smiled gently, then kept working, pressing soil over the freshly sown seeds. The row took shape and she straightened up, wiping sweat with her sleeve. She gazed around the small garden, the plants standing as proof of her steady effort. The child darted off again, playing in a corner of the yard, laughter ringing out bright and clear. Anan pressed on, sweat beading on his brow, but he didn't linger. His journey now wasn't just about reaching the house, it was about returning to lytuca and their child, the place he knew he belonged. Anan leaned on his crutch, each step a struggle along the rugged path leading home. The sun had begun to set, casting a golden-orange glow across the stone-strewn trail. The crutch tapped the ground, a steady sound blending with his labored breathing. Near the stream he paused, settling onto a large rock beside the water. The cool stream flowed over his hands as he bent to wash his face, droplets rolling down his cheeks. He looked up, watching the water sparkle under the fading light, a faint relief easing his heart. He wiped his hands on his shirt, took a deep breath and stood with the crutch. His steps were slow, but his eyes stayed fixed on the small house in the distance. Lytuca, back at home, had finished planting the last row of vegetables, standing there with a smile as she watched her child play in the yard. The little one, covered in dirt, held a small stick, running in circles as if playing a game of chase. She wiped sweat from her forehead, her calloused hands resting on her hips, admiring the now tidy garden. The child's clear laughter rang out, warming her heart amid the daily grind. Anh Khanh pressed on, the crutch trembling under his body's weight, sweat soaking through his shirt. The road gradually revealed the gate, the familiar red-tiled roof peeking into view. He paused briefly, adjusting his grip on the crutch, then moved forward with clear determination. Lytuca in the yard looked up and caught sight of him, her heart skipping a beat. She dropped the hoe, her bare feet pressing into the dirt as she rushed to the gate. Anh Khanh, I've missed you so much. Her voice broke, her eyes shimmering with tears. She threw herself into his arms, holding him tight as if afraid he'd vanish. Anh Khanh let go of one crutch, wrapping an arm around her, tears silently spilling from his eyes. Lytuca turned back, hurrying to scoop up the child standing bewildered nearby. The little one giggled as she lifted them, tiny hands reaching for Anh Khanh. He stepped forward with the crutch, embracing both mother and child, their sobs breaking free like those of children. The three clung to each other, tears mingling with joy, filling the yard with warmth. "What happened to your leg?" Lytuca asked with worry, her hand gently touching his bandaged foot. Anh Khanh smiled, his voice low and warm. "On the way back, a motorcycle hit me, but luckily it's just a broken leg." She let out a breath, her eyes flickering with a hint of pain, then helped him toward the porch. Anh Khanh sat on a chair, setting the crutch aside, his hand still gripping hers tightly. She placed the child on his lap, then went inside to fetch a glass of cool water. Anh Khanh gazed at the little one, stroking their hair, his heart lighter than ever. Lytuca returned, setting the glass in front of him, her smile soft and tender. He held her hand, saying firmly, "From now on I'm back and I won't let you and the little one suffer anymore." She nodded, then stepped to the yard's corner, grabbing a basket of chopped greens to feed the chickens. Anh Khanh cradled the child, following her with the crutch, standing on the porch to watch her scatter the feed. The chickens clucked noisily, pecking at the greens, creating a lively sound in the afternoon air. Lytuca finished, turning to look at him and the child, her smile radiant. She brushed off her hands, walking over to help Anh Khanh and the child back inside, the little one's laughter ringing out clear and bright. They sat at the table, the flickering oil lamp casting light on their faces. Anh Khanh recounted the day's events, his voice deep and steady, a touch of humor slipping in as he mentioned the roadside bun. Lytuca listened, holding the child, chuckling now and then at his words.